Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into some excerpts
Okay.
you've shared from Shad Helmstetter's What to Say When You Talk to Yourself.
Right.
You know, that inner voice we all have.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out it has a much bigger impact than we realize.
Right.
So get ready, because today we're going to uncover the power of self-talk,
Okay.
how it shapes our lives, and how we can use it to actually reprogram our minds for success.
That's right. Most of us walk around with this constant stream of thoughts and beliefs, and we don't even realize how much they're influencing our actions and outcomes.
Right.
Helmstetter dives into this by comparing our subconscious mind to a computer program.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how does this mind as a computer analogy work?
Think of it like this. If a plane's onboard computer is programmed with the wrong coordinates, it could end up hundreds of miles off course, or worse.
Oh, yeah.
Our subconscious mind is similar. If it's programmed with negative or limiting beliefs, it can lead us to make choices that don't serve us or even sabotage our efforts.
That's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah.
But where do these negative programs even come from?
Right.
Are we born with them?
Not necessarily. Helmstetter says a lot of this programming actually comes from external sources, especially during childhood. Think about it. Messages from parents, society, even the media can plant seeds of self-doubt in our minds. We might be told we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not good enough. And over time, these messages can become ingrained in our subconscious.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We've all heard those negative voices at some point, right?
Right.
But how do these messages actually affect us on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between positive and negative statements. It acts on whatever it's told repeatedly. It's like a computer processing code. The code doesn't care if it's creating a beautiful website or a harmful virus. It just executes the instructions. So if we're constantly bombarded with negative self-talk, our subconscious starts to believe it, and we begin to act accordingly.
So it's almost like we're self-sabotaging without even realizing it.
Exactly. Helmstetter uses a great example of a waitress who drops a plate of food and says, "Oh, I'm so clumsy."
Oh, wow.
She's actually reinforcing a negative belief about herself, and it's likely to show up in her actions again and again.
Wow. That's a pretty vivid illustration.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a story Helmstetter shared about a young boy named Michael. He overheard a neighbor tell his mother that Michael was very creative.
Right.
Years later, Michael became a very successful creativity trainer. It's amazing how a single positive comment could have such a huge impact on his life.
That's precisely the point. Even seemingly insignificant comments can have a powerful impact, especially during childhood when the subconscious is highly impressionable. But the good news is that just like negative self-talk can create limitations, positive self-talk can open up incredible possibilities.
So that means it's possible to change our programming. Even as adults.
Absolutely. Helmstetter introduces the concept of 5 levels of self-talk, each with varying degrees of effectiveness. But he highlights level 3 self-talk, the I am and I will statements, as the most powerful tools for creating change.
Can you give us an example of what that would sound like?
Sure. Instead of saying, "I wish I were more confident," a level 3 self-talk statement would be, "I am confident."
But what if you don't actually feel confident? Isn't that a bit like lying to yourself?
It might feel strange at first, especially if you don't believe it yet. But remember, the subconscious mind is like a computer. It doesn't judge or question the validity of the input. It simply processes it. So by repeatedly affirming, "I am confident," you're essentially reprogramming your subconscious to believe it. And over time, you may actually start to feel more confident.
So it's about creating a new mental program that aligns with what we want to achieve.
Exactly. And this applies even to deeply ingrained habits. Think of a smoker trying to quit. They might continue to smoke initially. But by using level 3 self-talk statements like, "I'm a non-smoker," they're sending new instructions to their subconscious. It's like planting a seed that will eventually sprout and lead to real change.
So even if the behavior doesn't change overnight, the subconscious is getting the message.
Yes, that's the key. It's not about wishful thinking or magic. It's about consistently feeding your subconscious mind with new information and giving it time to process, and integrate those new beliefs.
Mm.
And eventually, this can lead to real, tangible changes in your behavior.
This is fascinating. So how do we actually put this into practice? Are there specific techniques for using self-talk effectively?
Helmstetter outlines 5 techniques:
Okay.
silent self-talk,
Okay.
self-speak, self-conversation,
Yeah.
self-write, and tape talk,
Okay.
each with its own benefits.
So,
But what's important is finding the methods that work best for you
right.
and incorporating them into your daily routine.
Okay, so it's about finding what resonates with you and making it a habit.
Exactly. For example, you might enjoy starting your day with positive self-conversation in the shower,
Yep.
which Helmstetter refers to as shower talk.
Okay.
It's a fun and easy way to prime your subconscious for success,
Wow.
and it can be surprisingly effective.
I like that. So even if you feel a bit silly talking to yourself at first, it's worth giving it a try.
Yeah.
Now, Helmstetter also talks about something called tape talk.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that is and why it's so effective?
Tape talk involves recording positive self-talk scripts and listening to them repeatedly, especially while doing other activities.
Yeah.
It's a clever way to bypass conscious resistance. Your conscious mind might be occupied,
Yeah.
but your subconscious is still absorbing those positive messages.
It's almost like subliminal messaging, but with your active participation.
Exactly. And it can be incredibly effective. Helmstetter shares a story about a woman whose husband benefited from her self-talk tapes,
Wow.
even though he initially didn't believe in the concept.
So even if you're skeptical, the repeated exposure to positive messaging can still make a difference.
That's right. It highlights the power of the subconscious mind and its ability to be influenced even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Right.
It's like slowly dripping water on a rock.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to make an impact.
That's a great analogy.
Mm.
It underscores the importance of consistency and repetition when it comes to self-talk.
Mm-hmm. It really is about creating new neural pathways in the brain by repeatedly engaging in positive self-talk. It's like paving a new road where there was once only a dirt path.
So the more we travel down that road, the smoother and more accessible it becomes. But how widely applicable are these techniques? Can self-talk really help in all areas of life?
That's what's so fascinating about Helmstetter's work. He argues that self-talk can be used to enhance almost any area of your life, whether it's increasing income, improving relationships with your children, overcoming obstacles, managing your time more effectively, or achieving your goals.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about actually achieving tangible results.
Exactly. For instance, Helmstetter shares a story about a woman who used self-talk to overcome her fear of making phone calls to find a job. She was so paralyzed by fear that she hadn't even tried to contact potential employers for 2 years.
That's a pretty debilitating fear. How did self-talk help her overcome it?
Well, Helmstetter encouraged her to start with the smallest possible step, just dialing the first digit of the phone number. This strategy of breaking down a daunting task into smaller, manageable chunks is a key aspect of using self-talk effectively.
It's about building momentum and confidence with each small victory, right?
Precisely. And eventually, this woman worked her way up to dialing the entire number, scheduling a job interview, and ultimately landing a new job.
That's incredible. It really shows that even deep-seated fears can be overcome with the right mindset and consistent effort. Helmstetter also talks about the importance of internal motivation. What exactly does he mean by that?
He makes a distinction between external and internal motivation. External motivators like pep talks or incentives often have a temporary effect. They might give you a short-term boost, but they don't create lasting change.
So it's like a sugar rush. You get a quick burst of energy, but then you crash.
Exactly. True motivation, according to Helmstetter, comes from within. It's about cultivating that inner drive, that voice that says, I can do this, I want to do this.
So how do we tap into that inner wellspring of motivation?
Helmstetter argues that this is where positive self-talk becomes really powerful. By using affirmations and positive statements, we can start to change our internal dialogue and awaken what he calls the sleeping giant within.
That's such a powerful image. It's like we all have this incredible potential just waiting to be unlocked.
Exactly. It's about becoming our own cheerleaders, our own source of inspiration. And when we can do that, we become far less reliant on external validation or motivation.
This reminds me of something else. Helmstetter discusses the concept of situational self-talk. Can you elaborate on what that means and how it can be useful?
Situational self-talk is about using positive self-talk in specific situations to manage stress, overcome challenges, and make better decisions. For example, imagine you're stuck in traffic and starting to get frustrated. Instead of letting anger take over, you could use self-talk to reframe the situation.
So instead of thinking, this traffic is horrible, I'm going to be so late,
Hmm.
you might say something like, okay, this is a chance to relax and listen to some music. I can't control the traffic, but I can control how I react to it.
Precisely. Helmstetter provides several examples of how to use situational self-talk in everyday life. He even shares a funny story about a newlywed who used strategic wording to manage her husband's reaction to a dent in their car.
Oh, I remember that one. Instead of saying, honey, I dented your car, she said something like, honey, I noticed a small dent on your car, and I'm so glad it wasn't worse. I'm just thankful we weren't hurt.
It's a great example of using positive language to reframe a potentially negative situation and influence someone else's emotional response. And it worked. The husband stayed calm and even thanked her for being so understanding.
It's like she preemptively programmed his self-talk. So we can use these techniques to impact not only ourselves, but also the people around us.
Absolutely. And the more we become aware of our own self-talk patterns, the more we can start to influence the conversations and interactions we have with others. It's a powerful tool for building stronger relationships and navigating challenging situations with more grace and ease.
It's almost like we're all walking around with these internal radio stations broadcasting different messages. And with self-talk, we have the power to change the channel to something more uplifting and empowering.
That's a great analogy, and I think that's a key takeaway from Helmstetter's work. We have far more control over our thoughts and beliefs than we realize, and by changing our self-talk, we can change our lives.
But it's not always easy to change those deeply ingrained patterns, is it?
No, it takes effort and consistency. Remember the dripping water analogy. It's about being patient with ourselves, recognizing that change takes time. But Helmstetter also emphasizes the importance of becoming aware of the external influences that can sabotage our efforts.
So things like negative news, critical people, or even the self-help industry itself can sometimes reinforce those limiting beliefs.
Exactly. We have to be mindful of the information we're consuming and the people we're surrounding ourselves with. We have to consciously choose to feed our minds with positive, empowering messages. And sometimes that means setting boundaries and protecting our mental space.
It's about being the gatekeepers of our own minds, deciding what gets in and what gets blocked out.
Exactly. And that's where Helmstetter's emphasis on personal responsibility really comes into play. We have to take ownership of our thoughts and beliefs.
Right.
And make a conscious choice to change the ones that aren't serving us.
So it's not about blaming our past or external factors for our current situation.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose a different path, a different story.
And that's incredibly empowering. It means that no matter where we've been or what we've experienced, we have the ability to create a new future for ourselves.
That's an inspiring message.
Yeah.
But how do we actually go about changing those ingrained patterns of negative self-talk? Are there any specific exercises or techniques that Helmstetter recommends?
He offers several practical tools and exercises.
Okay.
One that he emphasizes is taking an inventory of your self-talk.
Okay.
Actually sit down and write down the things you habitually say to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
both positive and negative.
So it's about bringing those subconscious patterns into conscious awareness.
Exactly. And you might be surprised by what you discover.
Right.
Once you see those negative scripts written down, you can start to challenge them.
Yeah. And replace them with more empowering messages.
It's like editing a document. You go through and identify the errors or typos and replace them with the correct wording.
And that's where Helmstetter's 5 levels of self-talk come into play again.
Right.
He reminds us that level 3 self-talk, those I am and I will statements, are the most powerful for creating lasting change.
Because they directly address the subconscious mind, like commands that tell the brain how to think and behave.
Precisely. And he emphasizes that even if we don't believe those statements at first, the act of repeating them consistently can start to shift our beliefs and create new neural pathways.
He uses the analogy of walking a path through a field.
Yeah.
At first, it's difficult and there's resistance. But the more we walk that path, the easier it becomes, and eventually, a clear path emerges.
Yeah.
It's a great visual for understanding how repetition can literally rewire our brains.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not stuck with the patterns we've inherited or developed over the years.
We have the ability to change, to grow, to evolve.
And Helmstetter provides a whole toolbox of techniques to help us do just that. He talks about silent self-talk, where we simply repeat positive statements to ourselves mentally self-speak, where we consciously choose our words and phrases when talking to others. Self-conversation, where we actually have conversations with ourselves out loud, asking questions and providing answers.
And of course, there's self-write, where we actually write out self-talk scripts and read them aloud regularly. This seems particularly helpful for addressing specific challenges or goals. It's like creating a personalized program for our subconscious minds.
And then there's tape talk, which we talked about earlier, recording those scripts and listening
Mhm.
to them repeatedly. This seems like an especially effective way to bypass conscious resistance and really saturate our subconscious minds with positive affirmations.
It's a great option for people who find it challenging to stay focused during traditional self-talk practices or who want to reinforce those positive messages throughout the day.
What I appreciate about Helmstetter's approach is that he provides so many different tools and techniques. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with you and incorporating it into your life in a way that feels authentic and sustainable.
Absolutely. And he also emphasizes the importance of finding joy in the process. It's not about forcing ourselves to do something we hate.
Mhm.
It's about finding ways to make self-talk fun and enjoyable so that it becomes a natural part of our lives.
This all sounds incredibly empowering. But before we get too carried away with the potential of self-talk, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not a magic bullet.
That's a great point. It's not about ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about choosing to approach those challenges with a more positive and empowered mindset.
It's about changing our internal dialogue so that we can show up as our best selves even when things get tough.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that self-talk works best when it's paired with action. It's not enough to just think positive thoughts. We also have to take concrete steps towards our goals.
So it's about aligning our thoughts, words, and actions. It's about creating a powerful synergy that propels us forward.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important messages Helmstetter conveys is that we have a choice.
Yeah?
We can choose to let our past programming and external influences dictate our lives.
Right.
Or we can choose to take control of our thoughts and create the future we want.
It's a powerful reminder that we are the architects of our own destinies.
Well,
But this deep dive into the power of self-talk has been truly transformative, and I'm excited to see how our listener applies these principles in their own life. As you navigate the world, remember, the words you choose to say to yourself have the power to shape your reality. What area of your life might you want to explore further, using the principles of self-talk? What negative self-talk pattern are you ready to let go of? And what empowering news story are you ready to write for yourself?